Hello, everyone, and welcome to another interview for Extraordinary Latinas. Today, I'm so excited and grateful to welcome Enna Jimenez. Enna, you are a powerhouse Latina whose passion for community leadership and advocating for what is right has created so much impact, especially for women of color across so many sectors and places. You're a change agent who inspires people, communities, and organizations to do what is needed and what is right, especially in support of young talent to help them grow and succeed in their career. Not only do you have a successful career in corporate, but also outside of corporate through your work in different boards and organizations, and you've successfully balanced both. You've gained multiple recognitions for the work that you've done and the impact that you have created. You're such an inspiration and extraordinary Latina, and it's such an honor to have you here. Thank you so much.
Hi, Eliana. Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. It's it's just humbling to be able to speak about my experiences and sharing that with your audience. I think it's an amazing experience. So thank you, honestly.
Thank you. So I want to start with, from the beginning and ask you to share your story with us and where did it all start?
It's a great question, Eliana. So I always like to start with, where I come from. Born in Puerto Rico, parents are from Dominican Republic, been in Boston for many, many years. And my story is really a story of similar to many others, immigrant parents who was striving to become something, to have something in their lives and to create an opportunity for their kids. And so both of my parents, entrepreneurs, they both had businesses here in the Boston area, and they really instilled in us from my brothers and sisters from very young age, the sense of giving back to the community. And just being resilient, having that passion and that drive towards accomplishing your dreams. That has been at the core of everything that I've done. And so it's really exciting. I've had the opportunity or, many experiences throughout my career. After graduating Simmons University, worked in many different industries in technology, which I'm sure we'll get a little bit more into, but it's definitely been a great ride.
And you touch on so many great points, especially, and I do want to tap into the technology piece, because I think that's becoming more and more, a trend in general to say there are not enough women in tech or in, that area, that sector. And if you dial it even further or you deepen even further, they're not Latinas in tech or, just women of color in tech. And that just becomes like the number like this. So the good thing is that we're starting to see the numbers rise a little bit more. But what inspired you to go down that path?
Yeah, it's interesting because, as I share this with others, I couldn't say, how did I end up here, right? I still remember till this day that I had a guidance counselor in high school who just simply said, major in computer science, you'll have a great career. Now, whether that person had the foresight to be like, you're Black Latina woman, go in that direction, I don't know, but that's what he recommended. And I kind of said, okay. And so I went to Simmons University and just, graduated from there. I was pretty, lucky to have had a professor whom I connected with and still Professor Menzen, still a great friend of mine today, who matched me with a friend of hers who worked at a software company. And that's where I did my internship. And so that was my introduction to the software development world and quality assurance. And, worked in that area for many, many years, moved around to a number of different companies. But there was a point in time, where I kind of said, oh my God, I can turn this into a career. Like, wow, I hadn't really thought about that. And once that light bulb went off, that was it. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I knew that I wanted to end up in, in management and senior leadership, and just really studied, became an expert in my craft, which is something that I'm always, telling people to do, right? Become an expert in your craft. So attend conferences, read books. Now we have the internet. Back then we didn't, right? And so it is a lot easier to do that today. But because of all that learning and education that I did, I became a subject matter expert in this field. And so I was able to kind of jump around in various industries. I've been in product, software, financial services, banking. I've been all over the place. And pretty much in every company I go to, it's all about what is the quality level that the company is producing for their various applications, whether our customers are internal customers or our customers are external customers. And how does quality play a role in meeting the company's bottom line? And so once you connect with that, and once I connected with that and understood that, every time I walked into a new organization, company, I was able to really make a lot of improvements and changes and mature our process. I'll say that the last 10, 15 years or so, I've been really focused on transformation, and specifically now into an agile transformation has been a lot of my focus on a lot of the various companies I've been at. And it's been fun. It's definitely been a great experience. So I'm really enjoying it.
You touched on several great points that I want to talk about, and two in particular. One is about, learning and becoming that subject matter expert. But before that, you had this mentor that you talk about in Simmons that was maybe not necessarily, it was planned that way, but because they were there, they probably saw something in you and they supported you informally. And I think that's so important to be able to identify those mentors. And I don't know, that's something that many of us recognize through our lives, and the importance of hearing those mentors out to then start learning and becoming curious for certain things. And I know that you have been a great mentor. I consider you one of my mentors, and you mentor others, and you also have your mentors. So if you can talk a little bit more about, the importance of finding mentors consciously and not just randomly, in terms of being able to grow in our careers.
And Ileana, is one of those questions and points that people often do not realize who's around them, right? Or they don't realize the impact of the connections that they have around them. I will tell you that I have a ton of mentors and sponsors, and it wasn't necessarily because I went out seeking for them, right? I mean, a lot of them was just, I would ask questions, I would hear what someone would say, I would take someone's advice, and granted, you have to kind of weed out some good from the bad, right? But you're able to have a conversation. And for me, my advice is really build relationships. A story that I love to tell, because it's one that really touches on this. I once worked at an organization, and about a month after starting, there was a newsletter that came out, and one of the comments in the newsletter said, I'm Cuban American. I didn't know who the person was. I didn't really focus on the article itself, but it said I'm Cuban American. I'm Latina, right? Dominicana, Puertorriqueña. So I was like, oh my God, I got to meet this person. I reached out, sent him said, let's have coffee. He said, absolutely, love to welcome you to the company. We had coffee, and that simple, we talked about school, kids, how long have you been at the company, etc. We ended up realizing that our kids were in the same school, like, go figure, right? And that just started a relationship. It was just a bond, because he was Cuban American and I'm, Puerto Rican Dominican, right? And so that's what I recommend people. When you're looking for a mentor, really build a relationship. A mentor goes beyond, I'm just going to talk to you because I need something from you. A mentor is someone that's there for you, someone that gets to know you, understands you, because that's how they're going to really be able to give you the best advice, right? Because they've gotten to know you over time. And it's also reciprocal, right? I mean, so you have to be able to want to know about them. And so that relationship is definitely a two-way street. And then you got to nurture that relationship. You have to, follow up every now and then. Hey, how's it going? By the way, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. This is, these are the things that I'm working on, sharing those opportunities. I will tell you that that mentor, that gentleman that I met, ended up being my biggest sponsor. And a lot of the things that I got to do in this organization was due to him mentioning my name and putting me in situations that people would ask me, Enna, you're in IT. Why are you in these business related events? It's like, well, I don't know. I was invited, so I am definitely going to go. Right. But it was due to him realizing who I am, that relationship that we both built that allowed for him to go from a mentor to a sponsor. So that's really, my advice. Just build a relationship, focus on that, and don't necessarily don't go into any relationship looking for someone to don't be like, I would like to talk to you because I want something from you. That is something that I'm always telling people is that's not how you build a relationship. Just generally get to know that individual, because it may not be something that that person can give you directly, but it's about whom that person can connect you in their networks.
Such valuable advice. Thank you so much for sharing. And I think part of this, I would love to hear more from you in terms of that mentor became, in a way you talk about, became your voice, outside of your area of influence. What do you think is important, or how do we elevate our own voice? Because that's something that seems easy to do, but really it's very hard. And when we do that, not get that voice lost in everything else.
Right. And something that I believe has really worked for me, and people always tell me, oh my God, and you're so great at public speaking and all these things. And I'm like, I just share my story, right? And I think that the importance behind a brand is that you honestly have to feel confidence in your story, the good and the bad, right? And everyone has experienced good and bad things. And so when you have a mindset where you think I'm the only one that's experiencing this, then that limits you, right? It hinders you from being your true self. And so I'm a big proponent of just share your story, because there's someone else out there in the audience that more than likely has had something similar. May not be the exact same way, but for sure, something similar. And it could be that you might be helping them, or it could be that they may come up to you afterwards and be like, oh my God, I so connect with that. Here's what I did. And now they're giving you some advice of how to handle that. And so when it comes to your brand and having that voice, it comes from being confident, right? And I know that can be a hard thing. There's some people that is like, okay, I'm confident, but I'm shy. I can't speak in big groups, right? And we've seen that, Ileana, both from our work. We know exactly what that looks like. But I tell people, but you studied, you've worked super hard, you have, done your assignments or your work and handed stuff in. Don't you feel good about the work that you did? Well, yes, of course. Then use that feeling that you have, that you've accomplished something, to get you to the point of feeling confident about yourself. And that confidence is going to give you the ability to go out there and talk to anyone and everyone. You've been around me, Ileana, where we've been in places where we literally am just going around talking to so many people, right? Sharing little wisdoms, but more often than not, I'm learning. I want to hear and meet other folks and learn about their story, because that becomes a much richer interaction. So being confident, right? Become stronger in your craft, and just kind of aligning in that anchor of all the experiences that you've had.
Such an important part, but in reality, and I would love to hear from you, because I know that a lot of people ask me, like, you seem so confident, like you know what you're talking about. And then there are some days that I'm like, I have no idea. Like, my self-confidence is like, it's not even in the floor. It's like under the floor, like I can't reach it. And it's still to this day, like there are days that I'm like, I really have no idea what I'm doing. So can you share sort of those moments, and how do you recover to get back, On the spot.
No, absolutely. And definitely we have all been there, right? And for me, I've had the pleasure and beauty of having a strong family unit. You mentioned earlier, talking about role models and all these, but my biggest role model has been my mom, right? And seeing her strength, seeing her when my mom became an entrepreneur, owned her own business here in Boston, retired after being there for 33 years. The amount of struggles and issues that we as a family went through that was like unsurmountable amount, right? And so, but she never gave up. Right. She never gave up. And so I saw her through that. And so whenever I was down, she would call and be like, okay, what's going on? I didn't even have to tell her that something was wrong. She's like, something is wrong. So then she would just start giving me all these beautiful nuggets of wisdom just to elevate me and lift me. Right. And so that allowed me to kind of help to get myself kind of out of that rut, right. Out of that space that was not a good space. Another thing that folks can do is, you can always meditate and read books and just connect with your friends, connect with that network that you have to help you get out of that sort of that dark space.
Oh yeah, and it can happen. So how do you keep being yourself? You talk a lot about being authentic, and I think that's extremely important, but I've also seen and I've experienced it myself several times. Sometimes we just get so focused on something that authenticity sort of goes away and you're really not conscious that it's happening. So how do you recover that, or how do you maintain that focus, that authentic self of being who you are and true to what you believe in?
So, look, I am excited about everything that I do. And I think that that's been my thing. I have connected and being selective about what I choose to connect with, right? Because part of it is, I honestly feel that when you are passionate about whatever it is that you're working on, then you're going to always give it your 100% best, right? And so for me on a career side, once I connected and understood what my goals were, and by the way, I've set several goals on a career perspective. I have surpassed them several times. I still have more goals to reach, so I'm not totally at the end of that. But once I kind of have a vision of where I want to be, and I'll talk to several people to say, hey, I would like to get here. What do you think? Give me some thoughts and ideas. And so I have some input as to how I can potentially get there. Then it's just execution. All right, I gotta, buckle down. If you gotta work till all hours of the night getting a project done, guess what? You're gonna get it done because that's part of the plan of where you want to go to. So you have a focus, right? That's where you're trying to get to. And that's very, very important. And so, those are some of the things that one would be able to do. So I definitely can share a little bit more as well. Oh, you're muted. You're muted.
That's that is continues and will continue to be, right? Like you're muted. You've talked a lot about all the things that you've done throughout your life from a professional perspective, but you also mentioned the importance of family and your personal side that can be part of your family, but also things that you love to do. And I know that you've accomplished, or you've done a really good job of balancing all of them, or at least that's what it seems. So would love to hear some advice, how you manage all of these sides of your life.
Calendar. I have my calendar on my phone and my calendar at work. And let me tell you, if it's not on the calendar, it's not going to happen. That is my number one tool. I know people always saying, well, how do you keep track of it? Because I keep it all on my calendar. And then I also use, folders and email and things like that to help me track stuff like that. Right. But Ileana, it really just comes down to when you're interested in something, you're going to make the time for it. I love networking. I love networking. I love meeting new people. I love hearing stories of how people got to where they're at. To me, that's just exciting. it excites me to know your background, your story, right? And I don't know why, but it just does. It's good to know that information and whatnot. And so that has allowed me to just build all of these connections. And like I mentioned earlier, right, this sense of community and belonging to a community is something that's been drilled into me from since I was very young. And I've done the same thing with my kids, right? Instilled this whole sense of community. And so, being able to be engaged in a number of different community organizations. So, as you know, we're both part of ALPFA, right, the Association of Latino Professionals for America. And when I first got engaged or involved in this organization, I was like, oh my God, finally, I can see a group of Latinos that look like me that are also in corporate world, right? They're also professionals. How amazing is this? And that was like eye-opening. It was just super amazing. So I had the opportunity to get really involved and engage in that. And I've done that with many other organizations. But the most beautiful part is that I've also passed that down to my kids as well. So my daughter is also super engaged in ALPFA. I was president of the ALPFA Boston chapter. My daughter is president of the UMass Amherst ALPFA chapter because, of course, she has to follow her mother, right? But these are all things that impact us. I think about all of my kids and everything that they're accomplishing in their lives and who's been there, right? If I go back years ago when I really started to do volunteer work, why did I start that? I started that because I started to be room parents in my kids' classes. I wanted to be in there. I wanted to, I was the crazy mom that was always involved in everything that had to do with everything their kids, whether they liked it or not. And so that was really the starting point for me. So I started to do all kinds of events that really extended or expanded my kids' just experiences. And so from being that crazy mom that was at the baseball games and gymnastics and yelling and screaming to finding opportunities where kids that look like my kids can also have cheerleaders in their corner. Because what I learned early on was that there were some of their friends didn't have that cheerleader. So I became that cheerleader for them. And that really strengthened and allowed me to kind of, do what I do and do it for a much larger cause.
I love that. And I know that, supporting young talent is one of your passions, like you've said, not only in your kids, like just in general and all the things or in most of the things that you do. So for our young audience, especially the young Latinas who are in some cases struggling to find their place, to find their voice, to be heard, to find that self-confidence. I know you've given us a lot of nuggets, but what would be like the top 2-3 things that you would say, like, this will you have to do this?
I think most importantly is really become educated in whatever it is that you want. Like really, really know it, right? And even if that means you're going to go to different places to get different experiences so that you also have, to me, it's important to have breadth but depth as well, right? A little bit of both, right? And so make sure that you really learn your craft. That to me is one of the number one things. And tying that to being passionate about it. You have to love what you do. If you don't love it, you're not going to get up from your bed at 3 o'clock in the morning or 4 o'clock in the morning or whatever time to be able to do the things you need to do. And sometimes, yes, you have to get up at 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning because you know what? The day, 24 hours is not long enough. And sometimes you need 28, but you don't have that. Right. So that's one thing. The other thing I would say is build a network around you, your friends, your friends' parents, right? You've got a lot of people around you that can help build that network. I think sometimes we look at folks in our surroundings and we're like, oh, well, they can't help me, or they don't really know. And you're right, maybe they don't know, but they may know someone that does. And that's the beautiful thing, right? That's how you build those networks and those connections. And then, finally is just be you. Be you and all that you represent. And you had asked me earlier about being authentic. How are you authentic, and how do you bring your authentic self, right? I am a Latina through and through, right? And I love to dance, and anyone that knows me knows that I love to dance, and I talk about it so then there's no end. And every job that I've had knows that I love to dance. And I would come into the office and talk about, yep, went out dancing last night, and oh my God, had so much fun. Oh, but you know what? And some people might be like, Enna, you might be sharing a bit of yourself. You don't bring that stuff to work. But I feel like, no, they're going to get to know me. Because if they get to know that side of me that is me, then they will also know that I'm very passionate about my work and that I will give my work my all, right? So that's part of who you need to be. And that's how I personally bring my authentic self to work. And that's what I recommend. Now, I do say, because people have taken my words, sometimes I'll be like, okay, so I'm going to be myself. I'm going to go do this and do that. And I'm like, okay, but you have to know your audience. At the end of the day, you still need to know your audience. So there are those days and those meetings that I'm going to be like, okay, I'm going to wear my pink shirt, or I'm going to wear my purple shirt, and I'm going to show up as me because I'm a colorful person. I love my colors. And then there's days where I'm like, okay, I'm going to wear my black suit with a white shirt because that's the kind of meeting that I'm walking into, right? So you have to know your audience. It doesn't mean that you're changing yourself. It doesn't mean that you're being less authentic, but it means that you have to play to the audience that you are meeting with. And in this world, we have to do that. And so that those are my advices. That's what I would do.
Oh my God, I have like all other questions. We're running out of time, that I think we could just have like a completely separate session that we might just do. But thank you so much. How can I've been putting your information? Where can people find you in an easier way? Is it like your LinkedIn, your website?
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, thank you, Ileana. Obviously, the easiest thing is to reach me on LinkedIn. And as you mentioned, I have my own website, which is not fully updated. I will admit I need to update it. But that's also another way you can reach me. And, I'm available. I'm around to help mentor anyone as I continue my career, my pathway towards, hopefully, my goals are certainly to get on a corporate board, whether it's private or a public board. That's certainly what my next, steps. And so as I continue to build my network and my connections to drive myself towards, again, my goal, my focus, right? I am more than happy to help share my knowledge and expertise with everyone else. So, Ileana, thank you for this opportunity. It's an honor to be part of your Extraordinary Latinas group and to be able to have this conversation with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's really been a pleasure getting to know you a little bit more and hearing about your extraordinary story as a woman and as a Latina. Thank you so much for being here today. And I look forward to continuing to build, this future together. Thank you.